Psalm 78. Hear my doctrine, O my people. Incline your ears unto the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will declare high sentences of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them for their children, but to the generation to come we will show the praise of the Lord, his power also, and his wonderful works that he hath done, how he established a testimony in Jacob, and ordained a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers, that they should teach their children, that the posterity might know it, and the children which should be born should stand up and declare it to their children, that they might set their hope on God, and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and not to be as their fathers, a disobedient and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not faithful unto God. The children of Ephraim, being armed and shooting with the bow, turned back in the day of battle. They kept not the covenant of God, but refused to walk in his law, and forgate his acts, and his wonderful works that he had showed them. He did marvelous things in the sight of their fathers in the land of Egypt, even in the field of Zoan. He divided the sea, and let them through. He made also the waters to stand as a heap. In the daytime also he led them with a cloud, and all the night with the light of fire. He clave the rocks in the wilderness, and gave them drink as of the great depths. He brought floods also out of thy stony rock, so that he made the waters to descend like the rivers. Yet they sinned still against him, and provoked the highest in the wilderness, and tempted God in their hearts, in requiring meat for their lust. They spake against God also, saying, Can God prepare a table in the wilderness? Behold, he smote the rock, that the water gushed out, and the streams overflowed. Can he give bread also, or prepare flesh for his people? Therefore the Lord heard, and was angry, and the fire was kindled in Jacob, and also wrath came upon Israel, because they believed not in God, and trusted not in his help. Yet he commanded the clouds above, and had opened the doors of heaven, and had rained down manna upon them for to eat, and had given them to the wheat of heaven, and did eat the bread of angels. He sent them meat enough. He caused the east wind to pass in the heaven, and through his power he brought in the south wind. He rained flesh upon them as dust, and feathered fowl as the sand of the sea. And he made it fall in the midst of their camp, even round about their habitations. So they did eat, and they were well filled, for he gave them their desire. They were not turned from their lusts, but the meat was yet in their mouths, when the wrath of God came even upon them, and slew the strongest of them, and smote down the chosen men of Israel. For all this they sinned still, and believed not in his wondrous works. Therefore their days did he consume in vanity, and their years hastily. And when he slew them, they sought him, and they returned, and sought God early. And they remembered that God was their strength, and the Most High God their Redeemer. But they flattered him with their mouth, and dissembled him with their tongue. For their heart was not upright with him, neither were they faithful in his covenant. Yet he, being merciful, forgave their iniquity, and destroyed them not, but oft called back his anger, and did not stir up all of his wrath. For he remembered that they were flesh, yea, a wind that passeth and cometh not again. How oft did they provoke him in the wilderness, and grieve him in the desert? Yea, they returned and tempted God, and limited the Holy One of Israel. They remembered not his hand, nor the day when he delivered them from the enemy, nor him that set his signs in Egypt, and his wonders in the field of Zoan, and turned their rivers into blood, and their floods, that they could not drink. He sent a swarm of flies among them, which devoured them, and frogs which destroyed them. He gave also their fruits unto the caterpillar, and their labor unto the grasshopper. He destroyed their vines with hail, and their wild fig trees with hailstone. He gave their cattle also to the hail, and their flocks to the thunderbolts. He cast upon them the fierceness of his anger. indignation and wrath, and vexation by the sending out of evil angels. He made a way to his anger. He spared not the soul from death, but he gave their life to the pestilence, and smote all the firstborn in Egypt, even the beginning of their strength in the tabernacles of Ham. But he made his people to go out like sheep, and led them in the wilderness like a flock. Yea, he carried them out safely, and they feared not. And the sea covered their enemies. And he brought them unto the borders of his sanctuary, even to this mountain, which his right hand purchased. He cast out the heathen also before them, and caused them to fall to the lot of his inheritance, and made the tribes of Israel to dwell in their tabernacles. Yet they tempted and provoked the Most High God, and kept not his testimonies, but turned back and dealt falsely with their fathers. They turned like a deceitful bow, and they provoked him to anger with their high places, and moved him to wrath with their graven images. God heard this and was wroth, and greatly abhorred Israel, so that he forsook the habitation of Shiloh, even the tabernacle where he dwelt among them, and delivered his power into captivity, and his beauty into the enemy's hand. And he gave up his people to the sword, and was angry with his inheritance. The fire devoured their chosen men, and their maids were not praised. Their priests fell by the sword, and their widows lamented not. But the Lord awaked as one out of sleep, and as the strong man that after his wine crieth out, and smote his enemies in the hinder parts, and put them to a perpetual shame. Yet he refused the tabernacle of Joseph, and chose not the tribe of Ephraim, but chose the tribe of Judah, and Mount Zion which he loved. And he built his sanctuary as an high palace, like the earth, which he established forever. He chose David, also his servant, and took him from the sheepfolds, even from behind the ewes with young. Brought he him to feed his people in Jacob, and his inheritance in Israel. So he fed them according to the simplicity of his heart, and guided them by the discretion of his hands. God bless, and carry on.